Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. And thank you, Eric. This was your idea. We were having a discussion about heroine journey, the models on the listserv, the Healing Story listserv, and I couldn't help but pipe in, and I guess you sort of liked my approach and said, "Hey, lead a workshop." So here I am, and it's a great honor to be with you all. And do you need a stretch? Why don't we stretch, everybody? Looks like you've been sitting a long time. Breathe in and stretch up, breathe out. Again, in and out. Loosen those shoulders, shake a little bit. We need to bring our bodies with us, don't we? My body is bracing against the cold. Here in Massachusetts, it's 10 degrees below zero, which is the equivalent of 23.3 minus Celsius, and, which it doesn't usually get this cold, but luckily we're snug and warm, and I'm so happy to be here. So this is a very important topic to me. I am in no way a scholar, but can we all mute if we're not already?
I'll do the muting. Yep, go ahead, keep going.
Thank you. Not that I'm a scholar, because I'm not, but I've had a lot of personal experience with using the model to help me personally to make sense of my experience. I've used it in my writing, my storytelling and healing writing, and I use it with my clients. I'm also a psychotherapist. So when it seems right, someone's in a crisis, I can help them to think about what they're going through in the context of this model. And it's not that I really have a brand new model, it's that I have taken what I got from Joseph Campbell, and he didn't invent all this. It's very old, way of thinking, but taken from what I learned from him, and just made it simpler for myself and those that I work with. So I would like to, let's see, I'm going to keep my notes close at hand. Just ask how many of you are pretty familiar with this model already. You can just raise your hand if it's something that you love and you use. Okay, I don't see too many hands, but I only see the top row, so that doesn't give me a great sense. And I will just tell you a little bit about what we're going to do. I'm going to share a little bit about the model that I find most useful. And then I'm going to tell you a story that comes from my personal experience, but I made it into a third person story to help, just to help make it simpler, less of the gory details, and to really show the model. And then we'll do some writing. And after that, we will go into breakout rooms and then come back and talk about what happened. So why is this of such personal relevance to me? Well, back in my early 20s, I had a traumatic loss. And at that time, I wasn't able to bear the pain of it. So I locked it away in the back of my heart. But then in my 30s, quite suddenly, I awoke with a very painful and anxious depression. I had sleepless nights and couldn't really function. And my cousin suggested that I call her therapist. And at our first meeting, Ron was his name, he asked me about me, and I told him I was a storyteller, and he said, "Oh, I'm a storyteller too. And I also have a master's in mythology and religion." And he quickly told me that what I was going through, he put it in the paradigm of the healing journey. And the words that really stayed with me the most were that he said, "All the great saints, the mystics, the spiritual leaders of the world have made this journey." Wow, imagine me in company with such fine people. And he said, "You're not alone. This is a well-worn path." And that most everyone makes this journey at some time in their life. And he assured me I would emerge stronger than when I entered. Well, this really gave me a handrail to hold on to during this hard time. And held on, I had to. So Eric gave you a link to the Joseph Campbell version. And I'm just going to show you he's going to show you now my much simplified version, which, is pretty similar, but with a lot less stages. So let's have a look at that, Eric.
Okay, here it comes.
Dun, da-da, 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 da-da. Okay.
Is that big enough?
Oh, yeah. I think for me, I hope for everybody else, it's big enough as well.
So you've added the term for healing, right?
Yes, that's the
Joseph
way.
Joseph Campbell doesn't mention that.
That's right. But for me, that's what this is for. It's not about, slaying dragons and and showing how heroic we are to the world. It's for our own benefit. It's for our own benefit. So, as all stories do, just about, we enter in the ordinary world where life is fairly safe. We can take certain things for granted, and we can focus on the outer world because we have an inner stability. And then there's something happens. Campbell calls it the call. I'm saying more often it's a push, right? Like off the edge of a cliff from what is familiar. There's a change in our life that happens. There's a loss. There's a diagnosis of an illness. And sometimes there is a longing that sends us out into this place. That does happen. But it launches us on the journey, whether we like it or not. I think the reluctant hero-heroine is a very important part, because so often when you faced a trauma or a terrible loss or something has come up in your life, like a diagnosis or an illness of you or someone you love, you don't want it. You don't want to face it. You fight it. And this is so much of what goes on in psychotherapy, is helping us to find the strength, the inner strength to face what's come our way. There's a lot of anger. We rage against it. We may have deep grief, which is a normal part of the healing process. I find that in this section can take a lot of time, because no matter what we've been through, any kind of a change, there is grief that we have to allow, and we have to go through that process. Luckily, along the way, there are helpers. They are external people, like I was lucky to meet Ron, animals, nature, things we've been going to for a long time for support, or things that come to us newly. And they can also be internal. They can be very much of a spiritual origin. But the helpers give us the tools, information, hope, and guidance, and companionship, as well as insight into what's going on. Similarly to the reluctance part, there are places we get stuck. And I think here, so many folk tales have two brothers or two sisters who go out first to try to find the water of life, or whatever it is that is needed. And they see the old man or the old woman on the road, and the old woman says, "Can I have some of your bread?" And they say, "No, this is for us. We don't have any for you." And they go on their way. But what happens? Well, they find their way. They're stuck in a valley. They can't go forward or back, and they can't continue their journey. And this, we often think little of those brothers or sisters that act in a greedy way, but we they're really parts of us, right? All stories, all characters are parts of us, and they're the parts that say, no, forget it. I'm not going to use your help. I don't need anyone's help. I'm too prideful, or I'm too ashamed to admit I need help, or I'm too scared. They're the parts of us that want to turn to drugs or alcohol to mitigate our feelings. They're the depressions that can take all our energy, the anger that can take over, and the victim mentality, right? Why me? The self-hatred. So these need our love and they need our attention, because they're parts of ourselves that they're trying to protect us in some way, but they will keep us from going on the journey. Well, as I say, most of the time we do get help and we do move on. Even the two brothers and sisters, and a lot of the time the heroine or the hero of the story will eventually help them get unstuck as well. So trials, these are the challenges once we can agree that we're on this journey, whether we like it or not. These are the challenges that we face. This is often the longest period of time, brings us face to face with grief, right? Depression, anger, self-criticism, anxiety, the past trauma, regret. But we're beginning to build skills and self-compassion so that we can handle these trials. And then the sort of the last stage in the journey, not the last stage of the journey, but the part where I find a lot of the most deep work gets done is in the cave, where we may be finally able to face the trauma, the deepest pain, or the self-hatred, whatever it is. But we have that greater self preparation. We have some self-compassion and some acceptance. And this does require trusting in ourselves and allowing ourselves to be where we are. So for therapy, can take years to prepare someone to be ready to handle this, with lots of support from without and within. But as we go through this experience, a key component is that acceptance that this is where I am right now. This is what I need to go through. And I'm going to let myself be where I am and feel what I feel. And that helps us to find courage and freedom. So then the hero, the protagonist, heads home. And this is where meaning is made. And this I find is I really emphasize a lot in my work with helping people forgive things that have happened, or grief. Used to be that grief had about 5 stages, but David Kessler and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross added the 6th stage of making meaning, that we need to understand why this has happened, not just in a light of bad things happen to me or there's something wrong with me, but in the light of what can I take from this that has made me stronger and made me able to be more whole. That's really the goal of healing, is to become whole and thus be able to give our gifts to others in the world. So we return with this treasure, and that's the treasure, is our gifts, who we are and what we've learned, our insight, our wholeness, so that we can help others to live, to have the world be a better place. And it can be small. It's not that we are all, Odysseus, and not that we want to be. We all have unique gifts, and we can feel better about those gifts and how we share them. So that's the first section there. And let's see. So I'd like to tell you my story. And I'm going to see if I can. Hold
Elisa,
on. Yeah,
did I
yeah.
respond?
Please respond.
You know, as I said before, Joseph Campbell doesn't mention healing per se in the title of his model, but as you know, he also sees the journey as a metaphor for a psychological process of
Absolutely.
really with him, it's a process of maturation and becoming integration, you know, becoming aware of the different aspects of oneself and you know, following his teacher Jung, this the idea of individuation of you know, facing the different aspects of oneself and integrating them. So it's not healing per se, but it's an integration process with Joseph Campbell. So you're shifting it to healing, which is slightly different. Can you say more about, or maybe you'll do it later, in what ways you feel that Joseph Campbell's approach really needs to be updated or could be updated?
Well, I think that we are really naming that metaphorical approach, and that we are not looking to it as, oh, those were the heroic, or there are a few heroic people in the world, but that we are all heroes and heroines for just being alive. And that, you know, to me, maturation, all those things are talking about moving towards wholeness, which is what, you know, healing equals wholeness. We're not going for a cure, we're going for becoming more whole. So I see them very much akin. Let me see, I'm just trying to get to some of my notes here. And I, in fact, maybe if you put up the second slide, it will be helpful.
Is that the benefits of framing?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, thanks.
Okay, I'll go to screen share again.
Okay. So, not totally looking at it. This is why I feel like it's helpful for people who are entering into say a forgiveness process or working on trauma. I think I've made this first point clear, that knowing that the healing process is a well-worn path, that we're not the first or last to go through it, and that some of the real pain and the stumbling blocks along the way are necessary, and that most people on earth who make it to adulthood survive this journey. And just helping to be able to identify the stages, the tasks, and the benefits, they really help people to stay the course, and to not give up and want to retreat into some of those other ways of managing feelings that are overwhelming. And the fact that the journey stories are stories, and any good story has a happy, or at least a positive, redemptive ending. And if we can think of it that way, we can have hope that we will eventually get to a better place than when we started. And we will have made new meaning from what we went through. It won't be a loss. And it will take us to our more evolved selves. And after the journey, that we're better equipped to be the kind, compassionate parents, friends, role models, teachers, healers, wise elders, or leaders, if we choose, who can guide others on the path. So I don't know that really answers all of your questions. It's clearly not It's not wildly different, obviously, because it's a good model. It works. It's just that we don't need all of those phases, and they can complicate things if we have to look at them all to think about what we're going through. So is there more you'd like me to say on that before I sort of
No,
share?
that's fine. Thank you. I
Share.
apologize for.
No. This came from a dialogue, and I know you had certain hopes and expectations, so it's great for you to.
I think one way that you are updating things is that you're thinking in terms of the heroine and not just the hero. One criticism of Joseph Campbell is that he, it's always the male pronoun, and some people feel it's his whole approach is male centric.
Well, I think too, if the focus is on, just the outer masculine part of ourselves, we're missing the whole inner female part, which we all have, men and women. But yes, absolutely. Because I think I experienced the model so early in a personal way, I think of it as equally valuable to women. But I agree that for a lot of people, that has to be stated, that this is just as much something that women go through, and that I don't think we're as interested in those old stories anymore of a hero coming home and saving the day, as we are, all of us having our experience and valuing it and bringing our unique gifts to the world. So, yeah. And also the other thing that I will mention is that this whole idea of coming back triumphant, and saving the world or whatever, it's not always possible in the struggles we face. It sometimes requires privilege, right, to be totally successful at something, that a challenge we face, and we can't look at being successful as succeeding on our journey. That's where the meaning is so important, the making meaning. Just an example is a friend who spent years trying to help his son, who had been involved in prison, and had things that happened that he felt were wrong. And they tried to fight the criminal system for years. It took great energy, great strength, and they weren't able to get just what they wanted. But this friend was able to make the meaning that he had done as best as he could, and others had benefited along the way. He had brought this issue to the attention of the public, and the world wasn't the same. So this is taking away the focus on, the perfect outcome, and putting it back in the hands of everyone who struggles with everyday life. So what I would like to do now is to share with you a story that I created. It's not a story for performance by any stretch of the word. I don't even tell it except to myself usually. So I've not committed it to memory, but it is very helpful for me to put it in the third person, so I could really draw on the metaphors and make sense of it and hold it as a journey. And so I'm going to share it with you, starting with a little bit of the true story, and then going into the third person, and then coming back at the end, so that just as a model, because I'd like to have you think about how this can work for you in situations that you have faced. So as I mentioned, if anyone wasn't there in the very beginning, I had an experience in my 20s, a very traumatic loss, and I put it away. And then in my early 30s, I suddenly awoke one day with a terrible anxiety. I wasn't able to sleep. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't ride on buses or be around groups of people. I could hardly breathe. And I felt like there was something just terribly wrong with me. And I wanted a cure right away to make it go away. But luckily, as I said, I found this therapist, Ron, storyteller, mythologist, who told me I was on, he called it the hero journey. I call it the heroine's journey. And now I will tell Lily's story. Lily wanted to heal the wounds of her past so she could grow spiritually. She had asked God to help her with that very explicitly. And one night, she received a message in the form of a dream. Do a ritual to express your connection to the earth and to what is important to you. So the next night, she went out into the snowy field behind her cottage with an armful of candles. And there she carefully placed them around herself in a circle and lit each one. She felt safe inside her circle. It was beautiful in the glowing light. But suddenly, out of nowhere, these snakes began to slither between the candles under the snow from all sides, and she had to jump out of the way as they dove straight into the earth, creating a great big chasm, a hole, at least 6 feet around. She was terribly upset. She wanted to run. This was not part of her plan. She gazed timidly down with her candles into this hole, and from what she could see, it was dark and wet and smelled like dirt. And she said, no, this is not what I wanted. And a great fear rose up in her. She ran home, but she could not sleep that night. She couldn't get that image of the hole in the ground out of her mind. It was beckoning her. It was terrifying her. The next day, she went to the wise woman who lived at the edge of the village. She told her about the ritual and the hole in the ground and her sleepless nights. Come, said the woman, I will go and see this hole in the ground with you. And they walked under the light of day to that field. The snow had melted some. And when they reached that hole, Lily felt the fear rise in her. Timidly, she gazed over the edge, expecting to see the same raw, messy, straight sides in that bottomless pit. Instead, she was surprised to see stone steps winding in a spiral down around the edge of the hole. Take off your shoes, the wise woman suggested, and just take one step today. Well, Lily did, and she was surprised to feel that the step was very worn smooth. She looked up at the wise woman. You are not the first to make this journey, my dear. You can see these steps are worn by so many who have gone before you. It's the heroine's journey. The path is thoroughly known. All those who have really lived have made this journey at least once and have come back the better for it. Well, for weeks, Lily avoided the hole and visited the wise woman often, running to her about the monsters of frightening thoughts that would knock on her doors and windows. She begged for a potion to cure her, but the wise woman assured her that the cure was healing and required her to stay the journey. So Lily avoided the hole, but she began taking comfort in things that had always helped her, like the forest, leaning against the trees and breathing the cool air. She visited a stream where the water flowed, and it gave her a sense of peace. One day, the wise woman suggested that Lily was ready to go down those stairs. Together, they had helped to fill her backpack with what she needed. Can't you come with me? Lily begged. No, you have what you need inside. So Lily set off down those stairs, feeling the worn stones under her feet and hearing the sound of water below. It felt good, and she kept moving. At the bottom, there was a stream, and she followed it. There was a path. At times, she would lose sight of the path when those monstrous thoughts would take over. And then she would stop and talk to God and listen till she found her way again, until the stream went underground. And there was a marsh before her with murky water, and she really didn't want to go through it, but it seemed that that's the way the path went. And so she put her feet and her legs up to her knees into the water. And just then, from the opposite side, she saw a fin coming through her, coming through the water straight at her. And she wanted to run, but she watched as this shark circled around her and came up next to her. And a voice said, "Take hold of its fin." And she did. And that shark just so capably took her in and out of the hullocks and the reeds and the grasses across that marsh in no time. She noticed just how tenacious it had been, how determined. And she thanked it. And she internalized some of that tenacity and strength for herself. On she went. And one day the monsters were so strong that she lay on her back against the trunk of a tree. And the spirit of the tree came to her and sang to her. And when she rose up, that song stayed in her head. On she went. And after many days, she came to the opening to a cave. So dark and dank it looked. What could possibly lurk inside? It felt like too much to bear. But what choice did she have? She accepted that she had to go in and face her fears. And as she made that acceptance, she smelled smoke from inside. And as she stepped in, she saw the reflection of a fire on the wall, and she walked until she came to a fire that had been recently laid and was burning brightly. And there around the fire were soft blankets. She sat down. And as she did, she felt the warmth of the fire fill her up and melt her heart. And she began to weep. This time it was clear that she was weeping for the one she had lost 10 years before, the one who had been taken from her. The ache felt so deep, and it felt like it would never, ever go away. But as she cried, she became aware that she was not alone. She heard the comforting voice of a woman and saw that she was beside her and felt her holding her and telling her that she was right where she was supposed to be and doing just what she was supposed to do. And she promised Lily that she would not leave her now or ever. So Lily let the tears and the pain flow. She expressed her sorrow for what had been out of her control in that situation, and her sorrow for what had been in her control that she had not had the courage to take. She felt her rage for those who had worked against her will. On she went until at last there was a sense of peace, and the tears began to slow. Yes, she knew there would always be that place inside her where she would hold that being. But she felt ready to move on. And she opened her eyes and realized the woman was gone, and yet that voice of comfort continued inside her, and the feeling of being held was still there. She embodied them. She sat up and stood up and noticed she felt light and stronger. And the next day, she left the cave and headed for home. And now the forest was quiet, no monsters looming, just birds and small animals. But she worried, what if the monsters return? And the wise woman inside said, we will let them come. They're part of our healing journey too, and we know how to be with them now. And it was with this deep sense of confidence that Lily was able to return to the village, and the people were glad to see her. And she went to the wise woman's cottage. Oh, Lily, she smiled, tell me of your journey. And when she heard of all that Lily had been through, she told her, you have done well, and you are ready to be a wise woman yourself. Go and share what you have learned. And she did. And as for me, Elisa, I was able to go back to my job and my life with my friends, my storytelling, and also to think about how that experience had changed me. I saw that the only way out of pain is through, and that it might be my way of healing that requires such anxiety and depression at times, but I knew how to be accepting and self-compassionate. I saw that sometimes in our lives, we need to experience these painful times, but that we weren't alone. And I will end the story with my favorite Joseph Campbell quote, that we have not even to risk the adventure alone, for the heroes of all time have gone before us. The labyrinth is thoroughly known. We have only to follow the thread of the hero-heroine path, and where we had thought to find an abomination, we shall find a god. And where we had thought to slay another, we shall slay ourselves. And where we had thought to travel outwards, we shall come to the center of our existence. And where we had thought to be alone, we shall be with all the world. So let me come back so that I can see everybody. Yeah. Oh, hi. So good to see you all. See your faces. And I see a lot of things in the chat. Let me look at the time. Okay. Good. If there are any burning questions or comments, would you put them in the chat for now? And I will read them while you're doing some writing. I would like to ask you to write. And Eric, if you can, in a moment, put the model the model that I have suggested up on the screen again. I want you to write about what came up for you if you thought about your own experiences, a story that felt for you like a hero-heroine journey. And it could have been a crisis, a loss. You may still be in the middle of it, and it doesn't have to be a huge thing. But maybe you've thought of something, or you can think of something using the prompts of the stages of the journey, and begin to, as you write, to walk yourself through it. Okay, what was ordinary life like? And then sort of what happened to take me into something that wasn't ordinary, something that was painful, something that thrust me on the journey. And start to think about, some of the pitfalls, what the reluctance that you felt, what got in the way of accepting that you were on the journey, as well as what helped, who helped, and the trials. And if you got to the cave, we will, after we go into the breakout room and do, we will talk more about sort of meaning that we've made. But if you get that far, that's great. That's wonderful. If not, don't worry. If you're confused about this prompt, why not raise your hand right now? Just so I can see, does everybody, everybody has a sense of it, and I hope you have something to write with, or some of us prefer to do it in our head. There's no right or wrong way, but I just say, let's take the next 8 minutes and write, and let me know if you have questions that can wait a little, and I'll look at them in the chat. And Eric will put that that model back up so you can use it as a guide as you go along. Okay, thank you. Yeah, oh, thank you. Good for you, Eric. You made it just brief. I'm supposed to be looking at the chat.
Again, what are we invited to write about? Oh, you're on mute, Elisa.
An experience that we have had that could feel like it sent us on a hero-heroine journey. A crisis, a loss, a diagnosis, some time that we went through that felt like a dark night of the soul, or that really tried us, tested us. It could be happening now. It could be long ago. Just because I want you to start to kind of practice framing an experience in that light. Does that make it clearer?
Yes.
Eric, would you be willing to put up the other version that goes into detail about the stages? So someone's asking about the reluctant stage. And I think that provides a lot more detail.
Yes, I'll do that, but I need to come off screen share for a moment in order to
Okay.
do that. I'll do it in just a minute. Okay, which one?
The reluctant, um, the
Okay.
reluctant, yeah. And also if you can bring it up just a little to include the places we get stuck, because that's has a very similar
Mhm.
focus.
Here, I'll make it a little smaller.
Okay. Okay. All right. All righty. And how are we doing with time?
We'll have 40 minutes to go.
Oh, I mean, in terms of the 8-minute writing.
Oh, I don't know.
Ah, okay. Well, let me see. I can tell you. Okay. I think just about done with that part. I'll give you another minute to write.
Can I say something silly?
Of course.
What's coming to mind is that expression, when the going gets tough, the tough get going.
Ain't it the truth? Yep. But luckily, we don't have to go it alone all the time. All right. So maybe you can stop the share and
All right, well, we have 28 people in this session, but only a few of us have our cameras on. If you can, please put on your camera. It's nice to have a group.
yes, and it's going to be important when we go into our breakout room that we have real people to look at and to help us, because this exercise is going to be participatory within the group. Hello. So I'd love to just take a moment and see if anybody had any thoughts or comments. It's not the time to tell your story at all, but is there something you noticed about what I asked you, and whether you had some success or felt utter frustration, or okay, Rachel?
This resonates so much with work that I've been doing over the last several years, and is a very meaningful framework for me to put my whole experience into and to see where I'm at. And so thank you very, very much.
I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm so glad. Okay, if no one has a comment now, we will share a little bit more after the breakout. But let me put the prompt for the breakout into the chat. Oh, let's see, we may not have quite 24 minutes if we're going to have time for everything, maybe 21 minutes, Eric. And do we have a good number of groups of 3 people who've, let's see, we have, or we could have one group of 2, I guess will have to be, right, because we have 11 of us, is that right? 12.
Yeah, so really, if you'd like to go into a breakout room, please put on your camera now.
Yes. Or forever hold your peace.
Forever be invisible.
Be
No,
invisible.
not forever, but
You can
for
still
a
do the
time.
work behind the scenes. You can do this process by yourself, because it can be a writing exercise as well. What I'm suggesting is that you go in and you share 1 to 2 minutes about maybe the situation that you came up with, the true life situation, giving as much or as little detail as you want. This doesn't have to feel overwhelming. And then for us each to take a turn, seeing if we can put that story into the third person. And you can use that guideline of the steps of the journey. If you feel like you don't know where to begin, maybe one of the people in your group can say, once upon a time, there was a woman named Faye who went on a journey, or Faye can make up a name, right? Named Stargazer, who went on a, who had this happen. You can walk each other through. You can ask questions. Okay, what do you think? What was the reluctance? Who were the helpers? You can walk each other through to start trying to frame a story that you can see in the metaphorical sense, or tell it all on your own. Okay, do you see the options? You're going to just share a snippet, so you'll go one at a time. So Judy would share just a snippet of the experience, and then she would say, okay, once upon a time, and start to build this third person story, and have about 7 minutes, about 5 minutes to do that. Okay, 7 in total. And we'll send you the reminder. Any questions about this? I am so excited that you're willing to do this with me. And it looks like, are you going away, Jeff? Oh, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. Yes, we have. Perfect. We have.
Is Jeff still here? Jeff, are you with us?
He just went away. Maybe he was the only hero in the room.
Turn off the camera. Yeah.
Okay. But that's all right.
Okay.
We have a perfect number of people. So let's
Well,
go for it. Okay.
Hold on a second. Move to 1.
And if anyone is staying behind, doesn't want to put their camera on, they can come and talk with me.
Okay.
Back in the home plate. Okay.
Great. Okay. So it's off to breakout rooms.
Yeah.
Yes?
Make sure to
Okay.
unmute. Have a great time. All righty. So I'm going to put on.
Oh, and Adina, I'm gonna send you to a room. Just a second.
What about Tahi?
Okay. Well, we'll put them both in
Yeah.
room number 5.
Okay. Go have fun.
Okay, and then someone. Okay, I think that's whoops, and Adina came back.
Well, that's Ramya.
Ramya, hello, Ramya.
Are you just joining us now?
Yeah, I had work. I had to finish my work and join.
Okay, maybe you could go in and listen in a group.
Oh, lovely. Okay. Thank you. I'll get into a group.
Trying to get Andina, she's being reluctant.
Yes. What should we do? And Adina is not able to go, which means,
She
well,
looks frozen. I
Ramya,
think her
well,
screen is frozen.
Ramya, I'm gonna put you in a room with somebody maybe, and they'll explain what's
Yeah,
going on.
you can just listen to what happened, okay?
Yeah, sure. I
Oh,
did look into the synopsis of yours, Elisa. So
Okay.
yeah, I'll get it.
Gustavo, how are you?
Hi, I can only hear also.
Have you been, you've been listening all along, right?
No,
He
just
came in
right,
late.
very
Oh.
late, and I'm here.
I think Andina's screen is frozen. That's the problem.
Oh, well,
So
and Adina, if you can hear me, it might be good if you left the Zoom space, really quit out of the program and then come back into it, if you can hear me. But you may not.
You can put me any group you want.
But have you heard about what's happening in the rooms?
More or less. I can hear. I can at least hear. It's a trip. I think it's a personal story that one has to share about a journey, and that's it. A healing journey, and that's it. About 2 minutes, and then you share it. But that's about all the things I've heard, but I can hear. And afterwards, when I see it again, I'll just profit from it much more. Okay.
well, we're going to share the personal story that relates to the crisis, and then
I
we're
see
going.
also Mary is also there.
Mary, have you been here all along? Whoop, you've got to turn your mic on.
Mari, pon to, yeah.
Okay, I've been most of the time, I think, because of the time.
Okay, I'm gonna.
We're
gonna put you and Gustavo and Ramya in a room, and so please explain to Ramya what's going on, because she just got here. Okay.
Maybe you could put me in the group too for a while.
Yes.
Oh,
Me in the group.
That's perfect. That's
okay.
perfect.
Here we go.
All
This
right.
is room number 5, and let's see if I can do it.
And just remember, Eric, to send out messages at 7 minutes to switch partners, to switch who's going.
Wow.
Been here before. I was able to go into a group, and that was just lovely. That was so lovely. And I'm wondering, raise your hand or give a thumbs up if you were able to even catch a little bit of a story there and begin to share it. Good. And I think because we don't have a lot of time left, I'd like to focus the last part on sharing the final stages, which is the meaning making. What did we learn from this experience? And maybe that's not known yet. Maybe there can just be a little shred of something. And what could be the gifts that you took from it, that you brought back and that you share? So those are 2 questions. Let's start with meaning. If someone would be able to share, what did they notice? What was some of the meaning that came out of that hard experience? I see we have Apura.
Hi. Yeah. So I could just feel as if the whole process was, for me at least, a step towards entering the cave. Like it was really as if I entered the cave. I was afraid to enter the cave. And and it was dark, but I was trying to make sense of it, whatever I was feeling, trying to imagine it in different ways and also speak it out and have fun with it.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, that courage. It really took courage. But it sounds like the speaking it out and the going through it was good. It was positive for you. Oh, thank you. Who else would like to share a meaning that you took? I can say for myself, as I shared in my story, the meaning really was that, pain is inevitable, but if we can be accepting of where we are and self-compassionate, we can move through it and be free. Judy, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, actually, I took that as the gift because when you spoke with your story, one of the things that I thought about is that it's not that the pain goes away, but now we have tools in which we are not overwhelmed by it. And so when I was expressing the story, what I recognized is that the pain or the sorrow, whatever it is, that when I think about this situation that comes up, it doesn't overwhelm me because I have learned the tools, but it also allows me to recognize where I can be maybe kinder to myself and maybe a little more embracing of acceptance, because the outside circumstances won't change. What happened won't change. What my power comes from is the ability to move forward knowing that I'm still alive and that I have a life, regardless of whatever happened in the past. And I appreciated the fact that you talked about that the pain may not go away, but that we now have the tools. And that's what I felt when I went through it. And so it was the gift I take today.
That's beautiful, isn't it? And it's so true. It's not a magic wand that's waved. Who else would like to share something that you took? We have
Meenakshi.
Meenakshi, thank you.
So I was with Apurva, and we discussed a bit, and what came out to me was, and it was actually healing. One is that we are not alone who face certain situations that are challenging. We're all humans, it gets stuck. But we feel that it's difficult for us to come out of it. But then when you start accepting the situation, that's when I felt that I got the courage to be compassionate, not just to myself, but to things around me as well. So the journey actually is tough. It's not easy because every step that you take, you're not very sure about it. But when I start accepting things, I do see that light of hope. And that light of hope does give some direction. And when, I mean, it's step by step moving kind of, I feel. And when you move a step and you look back, one person, the third person, not me, we were telling the story in the third person, but we feel that we're different, we've evolved a bit.
That's right.
And yeah, so that's what I felt is a step moving ahead.
That's beautiful. Thank you. I wanted to ask if Ramya, just since we're just about out of time, would you share the gift that you now give to others as a result of what you went through?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, the gift. I started to make them feel comfortable and not go through what I went through. The same group of people around me, through whom I had to go a lot of, like right from the childhood, initial stages of parenting and so. And what I learned from the third person, like who supported me through, I started to give back. And I think that's the only way I feel healing. And I'm working with kids of 8 to 10-year-old. So that's when I had this complete process of trauma. So I think I can support them, and I'm only with 8 to 10-year-old children and traveling with them and also supporting the parents in the process. So give back. Yeah.
That's beautiful, isn't it? That's the gift that we have to give, is turning to those who may be going through what we went through now and who can use that, what we didn't get, though you did get some of it. All right, well, we're out of time, but I wish I could have heard every story, and I thank you so much for the courage and the sharing that you did. And if you would like the handouts, you can write to me at Elisa, ELISA, I'll put it in the chat, Elisa@wisdomtales.com. Wisdomtales.com. Did I write that right? No, I left out a letter. Wisdomtales.com. Yes, I didn't spell it right, but that's wisdomtales.com. No space between wisdom and tales. And oh, I know we have a new workshop, so we better go. And I see Mary Louise there. Maybe she's going to carry on. So thank you, Eric, so much. And thank you, everybody. And I wish you wonderful journeys ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very beautiful. Mary Louise led a workshop about 24 hours ago.
Oh, well, good for you, Mary Louise. You're back and probably freezing as we are. I don't know.
Okay, I'm stopping the recording.